Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to another episode of BSing Sports here on the BSing Network, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. This week, we're doing an NLE showdown. Me and my buddy, Ryan. How we doing?
Good, man. I know I'm wearing a Trader jersey, but, Tom Glavine's a legend. It gets a pass on this show.
My brother-in-law would be proud.
Yeah, we are BSing sports, not BSing just Philadelphia sports. But like I said, Glavine, one of my favorite pitchers growing up. And just to clarify, children are of all ages, right? You can be a child at 28. You can be a child at 36. You can be a child at 55 if you want to be.
That's right. That is right. Yes. Yeah. So either way. So like I said, we're doing an NL East showdown. We did our Phillies episode last week. We kind of mixed it in with the Flyers because, we are Philly sports fans. So that checks out. We're going to talk about the other four teams in the NL East today. And we're just going to get it kicked off for who, we can debate about this a little bit, possibly the worst team in the NL East. They were last year. So let's talk about the Nationals. They were last year.
According to sports books, they have the lowest over-under win total of the season coming into this year. So we'll start with them first. This is not opinionated in any way. We sorted this show based on those over-under numbers. The Phillies are projected to finish in second place in this division based on those over-under numbers. We will give our takes on whether they hit the over or the under of that win total at the end after discussing the team. So,
correct.
To kick it off, we've got the Washington Nationals, who finished fourth last year, actually. Or no, they finished last. Excuse me, my mistake, but only by 4 games.
Correct,
behind
to the Mets.
New York Mets. Yeah, so this year, they're a rebuilding team, let's be honest. And there's 5 key names that I'm looking for in the rebuild for the Washington Nationals. We've got C.J. Abrams, who was one of the big pieces coming over in the Juan Soto trade in August of 2022. He was a 6th overall pick in 2019. Going into his age 23 season here last year, 151 games, 83 runs, 18 homers, 47 steals, and had a slash line of 245, 300, and 412 for a 712 OPS and a 95 OPS plus. What does a lot of that mean? Because it's probably gibberish to a lot of people listening to this. So when I say a slash line, the first number will be their batting average. So 245 is what C.J. Abrams' batting average was last year. The second number is always the on-base percentage. So that includes not only their hits, but their hit by pitches, their walks, their balks even, just different ways to get on base, anything that discludes an error pretty much, because that does not affect your OBP. The next number is your slugging percentage, which accounts for the weightedness of extra base hits, is probably the easiest way I can explain it. And then the last number is your OPS, which is your on-base plus slugging percentage. That's probably the number that a lot of modern-day MLB fans really look for. So it'll be your on-base percentage plus your slugging percentage. That's pretty much what it says, right? Your ability to get extra base hits and get on base at the same time. And then OPS plus is a metric created to weigh basically the effectiveness of a batter. It measures strength of pitching face. It measures the ballpark that you play in. It measures, it accumulates a lot of different things. And the benchmark number to hit is 100, right? If you are at 100 or above, you are better than a replacement level player. You're better than average. So C.J. Abrams, 95 OPS plus, slightly lower than average baseball player at the plate last year.
Keeping in mind that he was one of the only people in the lineup that teams were kind of sort of not, giving him meat over the middle of the plate. Because then, you look at the rest of the lineup, you're going to go over these guys. Obviously, I'm going to let you go over these guys. But you look at the rest of that lineup, and it's not exactly daunting, right? So if you're looking at people in this lineup, you want to keep the ball away from. C.J. Abrams is one of them. However, 47 stolen bases, rock solid.
Yeah, need to get on base a little bit more to utilize those wheels, but he's got wheels nonetheless. So Keibert Ruiz came over in the Max Scherzer deal, 136 games, 18 home runs, 67 RBIs, slash 260, 308, 409, and 717 for 97 OPS plus. Again, right below that benchmark. He's going to his age 25 season. And last year, he signed an 8-year, $50 million contract, which seems to be quite a popular move from teams nowadays to go ahead and sign a young player to a cheaper long-term deal.
Phillies.
In the Philly. We talked about it last week. If you want to know our takes on the Phillies, go ahead and listen to our episode last week. But that seems to be a common move nowadays, especially with the Atlanta Braves. You see it work out for them a lot.
Yep.
So sign a younger player. Hopefully they pan out at a cheaper dollar. Luis Garcia, 23 years old, second baseman prospect, 90 OPS plus, did not have a great season last year. We've also got two pitchers that I'm looking to keep an eye out for. Mackenzie Gore, who was the other big piece in the Soto deal, went 7-10 last year with a 4.42 ERA, 136 innings pitched and 151 strikeouts. And then we've got Josiah Gray, who pitched 30 games at a respectable 3.91 ERA, 146 whip. So a lot of base runners, but seem to be getting out of it a lot. However, he did finish 8-13. I guess that's just kind of the downside of playing on a bad team, really.
Yeah. When you play on a bad team, record isn't something that you want to be looking at. You want to be looking at the ERA, the whip, strikeouts versus innings pitched, walks per innings pitched. And both of those guys, Gray more than Gore, obviously, seem to do pretty well in that scenario. But again, when you're playing on a bad team, losses are just going to happen. When the offense can't produce runs, you're giving up one or two and you're losing games. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, so an interesting note real quick about Luis Garcia Jr., he does have Super 2 status, which is an interesting case that you very rarely see in the MLB anymore. So the way MLB contracts are structured is you get a 3-year rookie deal and then 3 years of arbitration afterwards. Arbitration is the first time a player can truly discuss their value versus how the team values them. Now, there's a certain percentage they can go off of based off their previous year's contract and how much you can't just try and negotiate yourself to $40 million a year right away. That's not how arbitration works. But you have a little bit of leeway as far as negotiating your value versus how the team values you. And it's all business, right? So Super 2 status means you've played a certain X amount of games in the first 2 years of your contract, plus some, that now you get 4 years of arbitration eligibility instead of just 3. So you cleared the first 2 years as a rookie, and then you get 4 years of arbitration eligibility, which in the sense gives you an extra year to negotiate your value. So that's a big deal for MLB players. Do I like the arbitration system? No, not really. I think MLB owners are cheap, have been for a long time. Big Black Sox scandal, 100 years ago kind of proves that. If you haven't seen the movie 8 Men Out, I'd recommend it. I think I talked about that last baseball season and probably the baseball season before that, because arbitration is not great in the MLB. So, but yeah, so those are the 5 players I'm looking out for, and 5 guys the Nationals really need to step up if they're going to start heading in the right direction in this rebuild.
Yeah. You have some other notes here on the document. For those of you, obviously, you can't see our screens. Ryan was nice enough to put together a huge document. We don't have interns. We have to do this stuff ourselves. And sometimes one of us is too busy. The other person has to do it.
Yeah, I find some of it fun. So Lane Thomas was the best player on the Nationals last year, no question.
Would agree.
Best player on a bad team. 101 runs scored, 28 home runs, 86 RBIs, 20 stolen bases. So 2020 guy on a not very good team, 114 OPS plus, so above average according to that metric, if you believe in it. The question is, does he get dealt at the deadline if he has a similar year again? I think the potential is there. I think it's likely. Now, 28 years old, it sounds a little bit older compared to a lot of other sports, but the prime of baseball players can tend to last a little longer because the physicality of the sport isn't necessarily as high as something like football or hockey or something like that. So maybe because 28 years old, you can still be a part of a rebuild, but I think it really depends on how the team's doing, or those 5 players that I mentioned before, as well as how he's doing, right? Because if he takes a huge step back, you're not going to get a lot for him. But worth noting, he does have 2025 arbitration eligibility. So whichever team would potentially acquire him would, get another year of team control, which is huge when negotiating trades in MLB contracts. Carter Kieboom, if you're a Washington Nationals fans, you might want to cover your ears at this point. It's just been a total flop. 26 years old. He was the first round pick of the Nationals in 2016. He was drafted to be a shortstop, moved to third base quite a while back when Trey Turner was, looking like the shortstop of the Washington Nationals. He moved to third base when he was in the minors. 442 career MLB at-bats, and he is batting under 200 at this point going into his age 26 season. unless there is some kind of, ungodly turnaround. It's just not going to happen for Carter Kieboom.
Yeah,
Somebody that was supposed to be a staple in the rebuild turned out to be a huge flop.
correct. You're talking a 65 OPS plus. I mean, that's abysmal. Most players hover around the 75 to 80 range.
Bad players hover.
Yeah,
around
bad
the
players
75 to 80
hover
range.
around the 75 to 80 range. And he's sitting at a 65 OPS plus. That's just abysmal. So again, seems like a flop. Going back to the Lane Thomas thing, I think he is dealt at the deadline. Obviously, I don't know who would be looking for what at the deadline. Baseball is such a finicky sport that a team can be really good one year and then really bad the next. But I do think that Lane Thomas gets dealt because you've already said it, right? 28 years old. He hasn't quite hit where baseball's prime is at. But if he's playing somewhere similar to what he did last year, I foresee them trying to get some pieces, again, rebuilding, right? Trying to get some pieces to recoup the loss of Lane Thomas as well.
Yeah, and if what happened last year kind of repeats itself as far as his performance and team performance, I could see him being dealt because with a team with an extra year of team control, he could, command more return than if they waited another season.
Yeah.
Patrick Corbin, worst contract in sports. I'll argue it till the day I die. Signed a 6-year, $140 million deal in the 2019 offseason with the Washington Nationals. He has proceeded to go 41 wins, 64 losses, and an ERA at 5.00 since he signed that contract. If you do not understand how bad that is, it's awful. It's garbage.
It's not good.
Worst.
It's really not good. Yeah.
So you're allowing 5 earned runs per 9 innings pitched, basically, which is terrible. You will lose a lot of games, hence why he has 64 losses since he signed that contract. So worst contract in sports. Good news is it's the last year that they got to deal with it.
Yeah, keep in mind what I said earlier does kind of come into effect here. Bad team. He's been on a bad team really since they won the World Series. They've not been a good team. So the 41.64 again can be a little deceiving until you look at the 5 ERA. When you move over to his statistics, you can see that his WHIP is up, his ERA is up, his strikes versus walks is a really bad proportion. So just Patrick Corbin has just not been good since he signed the Nationals contract.
And baseball's played with a lot of players on the field. You only play half an inning really as a pitcher every game, and if you're a starter, you get 5-6 half innings at best. So I'm not going to say he's the entire reason the Nationals suck, but they signed him back in 2019 to be an ace after coming over from Arizona, and he has been anything but. He's actually just been virtually unmovable. They can't release him. They can't trade him. They just got to ride it out, and it's last year they get to do that. Some other big notes from Washington. They signed Joey Gallo, who is a 2-time Gold Glove Award winner, a 40 home run guy, and a sub 200 average guy. Off the top of my head, probably in the same season, if I had to guess. He's the Adam Dunn reincarnation with a little bit more athleticism. It's just, he is a specimen, that's for sure. But when he hits the ball goes far, he just does not do it very often.
Yeah, he had a abysmal season in New York for the Yankees, and then he went to the Twins and started out pretty well last year, and then finished not so well.
Yeah, and then Nick Senzel was non-tendered by the Reds, who was a first-round pick himself. So the Washington Nationals picked him up, taking a small gamble on him as part of the rebuild. And I don't mind that move. In baseball, for those of you that don't understand, prospects very rarely pan out, just as a whole. They don't pan out very well. That's why draft pick trading probably isn't even a thing in the majors, because it's worth almost nothing. Yeah, how many first-round picks did I say on here? Abrams, Ruiz, I believe, was a first-round pick. Mackenzie Gore was a first-round pick.
Carter
Kieboom was a first-round pick. Carter Kieboom was a first-round pick. Nick Senzel was a first-round pick. None of these guys have panned out to this point. So, as superstars. So it takes a little bit. And then Victor Robles is coming back from injury last year. So that being said, with all those notes, stats, and everything in place, over-under for the wins total for the Nationals is 66.5. They won 71 games last year. Bill, what is your prediction? Do they clear that? Do they stay under that? What do you got?
I'm predicting that they are not the worst team in the East this year. And as a result, I do think they win 72 games.
I don't have an exact number, but I do think that they clear the over as well. I think some of the additions, like a veteran presence of Joey Gallo,
Right,
Victor
exactly.
Robles being back from injury, and I think all those young guns I mentioned do take a step forward after gaining another year of MLB experience. I see them clearing 66 and a half. The range of outcomes for me, like if everybody just maxes their ceiling this year, I could see the Washington Nationals finishing third in the NL East. I think that the NL East is broken up into two very clear tiers. Or even three tiers, right? You can make the argument as three tiers, right? The Braves should win this division. I
Correct,
love the
yes.
Phillies. The Braves should win this division.
I
The
agree.
Phillies should finish second in this division. That,
Agree again.
bullpen issues aside, they should finish second. And then there's the other three teams. I think this is one of the easier divisions to kind of map out as far as how far each team's going to go.
I would agree.
So, moving on.
Yeah, we're going to jump into the Marlins, right? Last year, they finished with a record of 84-78. They make the playoffs, obviously get eliminated by the Phillies in the wild card round. For me, before Ryan gets into all of his statistics, just looking at the Marlins from the outside in, I don't do a lot of research on the Marlins. They obviously lose Sandy Alcantara. Jorge Soler signed somewhere else. Those are two huge additions to their team. I know they didn't have Alcantara in the playoffs, but I don't know that it would have made a difference playing in Philadelphia for 3 games. We could debate that anytime we want. I think they're a team that overachieved. And I think I said this last year when they made the playoffs. I think we did a show before the playoffs started. I said, I think the Marlins have overachieved this season. We said it to start the season. What was it? The COVID year they made the playoffs. Same thing. We thought they overachieved that year too. They're a young team. They're a little bit older now. They do have some pieces. I'm looking at the names that you wrote down. They do have some pieces. Sixto Sanchez comes back from injury this year. He doesn't look like the physical specimen that he was a few years ago. But I still stand tall at they overachieved last year.
I'll never forget Phillies fans when Sixto first came into the MLB for the Marlins in 2020, and he was pretty good for the 7 or 8 games that he pitched, and people were like, "Yep, we lost that Real Muto trade. It's over. It's done with." Well,
gotta wait for the whole thing, man.
Yeah. Sixto hasn't pitched an MLB game since those 8 games of 2020. So
that's right.
Meanwhile, as you know, Real Muto has had his ups and downs last year, but overall, I mean, the Phillies crushed that trade. And that's why anytime in the majors you are in a contending window, you've got to deal your prospects because as I just alluded to with the Nationals, there's like a 20% hit rate with prospects at best. I mean, that might be a really high estimate, but I mean, unless you are like a bona fide stud, and even then, it's the prospect hit rate in the MLB is just so low. So that being said, 2023 record, 84 wins, 78 losses, like you said, Bill. Luis Arias, I mean, he's the staple of this team. I know some people would argue it's Jazz Chisholm because the energy he brings. But ultimately, Arias, best hitter, arguably in the National League. Tony Gwynn reincarnated, ? Please don't hold me to that. 203 hits in 147 games, 35 walks, 34 strikeouts. Why is that notable? Because I don't know of any other player on a major league roster that started every day and has more walks than strikeouts.
It also shows the minimal amount of walks that he has shows that he's getting on base by swinging the bat. He's not just standing up there trying to get his OPS up or his on base percentage up. He's up there to swing the bat and he's successful. You're talking 354 average, like Ryan just said. That's successful.
One saying you'll hear around the baseball world is a walk is as good as a hit. And I would semi-agree with that. A walk is as good as a hit until there's runners in scoring position. If there's a runner on second base, I want a single. I'm way more likely to score a runner from second base with a single than a walk.
Yeah.
So that being said, Luis Arias, more walks than strikeouts, which is huge. Only 34 strikeouts on the season, 354 average, 393 on base percentage, 469 slugging percentage. So not a ton of pop, but he puts the ball in play. 861 OPS and then a 133 OPS plus. So he is well above an average hitter if you could not figure that out from the numbers that I just read before then. Jazz Chisholm, as mentioned before, 97 games played last year. He did suffer an injury. Still hit 19 home runs. Still stole 22 bags. 250 hitter with a 304 on base percentage, a 103 OPS plus. So he is just barely above league average according to that statistic. A lot of people don't necessarily like OPS plus, but I do ultimately think it measures a lot of aspects that formulate into being a good hitter. Now,
yeah, it measures those non-variables, right? Like the things that the batter cannot control.
Yeah, like the strength of pitching, the ballpark you play in.
Exactly.
It factors in a lot of different things. And now, where I think the Marlins, even without Alcantara this year, right, because they did have Tommy John in October, I still think they have a decent rotation. They've got Luzardo, who came over from Oakland a couple years ago, 32 games pitched, 10-10 record, 3.58 ERA, 122 WHIP, 208 strikeouts and 178 and 2/3 innings pitched. So definitely a strikeout guy. Braxton Garrett, also 26 years old, kind of came on the scene last year, 9-7 with a 3.66 ERA, a 115 WHIP. That's a really good number. More innings pitched than strikeouts, which again, not a very common thing that you see in the MLB these days, given the high strikeout rate. 159 2/3 innings, 156 Ks. And then Yuri Perez, who actually kind of beat up on the Phillies a couple times down the stretch.
Did, yeah.
As a 20-year-old. So he's going into his age 21 season. He's finally allowed to drink beers when he beats the Phillies. 19 games pitched, 5-6 record. Again, Marlins not a stellar team, but the following numbers are ecstatic. 3.15 ERA, a 113 WHIP, 91 1/3 innings pitched, and 108 strikeouts. This is still a fairly good rotation, even without Alcantara. So it's just a matter of repeating it and building off of it. They're a very young team nonetheless.
Yeah, young is the key there.
Yeah. So other notes, loss of Alcantara and Jorge Soler, who signed with the San Francisco Giants in free agency. That's 36 home runs right there that they lose. That is huge. Bill, over-under wins 77.5. I know you talked about a lot that they overachieved. Do you think they hit that number this year?
I've got them at 77. I actually do have the number pegged. It is under for me. I've got them at 77 wins on the season. I do have them finishing third in the division.
You have them finishing third at 77.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. I have them under as well. I do think that they overachieved a little bit the last couple of years. It truly, to me, comes down to the loss of Alcantara and Jorge Soler. I mean, 36 home runs. And then when you look up and down the rest of the lineup, there is not even a smidgen of power in the rest of this lineup outside of Chisholm. So it's going to be tough for them, especially in the ballpark that they play in. It's not necessarily a hitter-friendly ballpark anyway. I'm taking the under there. I think it's a clean under. I don't think they're a very good team. I could see them finish. I don't think they finish in third. I could see them finishing behind the Nationals, though. I think if the Nationals' young guns hit their ceiling, I could see the Nationals finishing above the Marlins. So I have the Marlins either fourth or fifth.
The reason I've got the Met Marlins above the Nationals is because when you're looking at the Nationals lineup, it's like if they hit their ceiling. When you're looking at the Nationals rotation, you're saying if they do it. To an extent, the Marlins players have already done it, but they lose 36 home runs and 94 RBIs. They lose 2022 Cy Young winner Alcantara. So they take a step back. They did overachieve. They take a step back. For the Nationals, it's a lot of ifs. For the Marlins, it's, well, we lost. You know, it's a different scenario and vibe for me, which is why I've got the Marlins above the Nationals.
And I understand that. That's why I said they could finish either fourth or fifth. I don't think the Marlins are a better team than the Mets, which we're about to get into here shortly. So I truly don't think they can overpass them. But let's just get into it now. New York Mets, key pieces.
Yeah, for starters, the record for the Mets last year was 75-87. They did finish fourth in the division. If you guys are following along, we're talking about the records and stuff. And take it away. Again, your statistics there, buddy.
Yeah. So when I was going through their key pieces, I mean, they dealt Verlander, they dealt Scherzer, a team that obviously, you know, they went all in last year, right? They spent, what was it, over half $500 million last year in free agency. and it just, fell flat on their face. Did not pan out. This is a
super
team,
fast too.
yeah, it was. Right from the get-go, they got meted from the start. I think Scherzer and Verlander were hurt to start the season. Everything that could have went wrong for this team. Edwin Diaz actually got hurt in the World Baseball Classic before the season even started. So he missed, celebrating. So he missed all of last year. An elite closer with the third best walkout song of all time. You can fight me if you disagree. No, I'm just kidding. But it's not better than Mo. Okay, we got to at least agree. It's not better than Enter Sandman, Mariano Rivera coming in.
It's not better than Mo. You're 100% right.
And I'm biased to AC/DC, so it's not better than Trevor Hoffman either. But Pete Alonso's still there. It's his last year of arbitration. So it's his last year of team control going into his age 29 season, 154 games plus in the last 4 years. So he is
healthy,
a durable beast. 46 home runs, 118 RBIs, massive power, right? 217 average, 318 OBP, 504 slugging percentage for an 821 OPS and a 122 OPS plus. It was a down year on the average side for Pete Alonso. Francisco Lindor, one of the better all-around shortstops in baseball, was a Cleveland Guardian Indian for a while. 160 games, 31 home runs, 98 RBIs, and 31 steals last year, so part of the 30-30 club. 254 average, 336 on base, 470 slugging, 806 OPS for a 120 OPS plus. My question to you is, on the fly, Bill, which one's more important to this team, Alonso or Lindor?
I'm going to say Lindor. Alonso expressed that he wanted out last season. And it became apparent when he wasn't even chasing infield flies anymore. I think whoever was playing second base for them at the time was surprised when there was a pop-up and Alonso just went and stepped on first base bag and didn't even chase it. Because Alonso has expressed that he wants out, I believe it's Lindor. Lindor is a veteran presence in the locker room. He can really make the young guys hey, listen, I know it's not gonna be our year, it's a rebuild year, and I may not even be here when you guys start winning again, but it starts now. I think Lindor could be the rah-rah guy. Alonso wants out. That's it. Alonso wants out.
Yeah, there was a lot of locker room dugout banter, and it did come clear from the media that Pete Alonso was at the center of it. He was very unhappy with the situation, very unhappy to be in New York, habitually losing in his time in New York, and that's just, it is what it is. I feel like
that's it.
He's kind of been the face of the franchise since he's been there. But,
similar to a Rhys Hoskins situation.
Yeah, except so. Since you brought that up, who would you rather have, Rhys Hoskins or Pete Alonso?
Bryce Harper. I have a first baseman. I'm good.
Okay, that's not the question I asked. You're starting a franchise. Which first baseman would you rather have? Rhys Hoskins right off his torn ACL or Pete Alonso with all his dugout issues?
Alonso with his dugout issues, because his dugout issues may be centered around New York. So you take him out of New York, you drop him into a different franchise where maybe they're competing, because if you're trading to somebody, they're probably competing. He may not have the same dugout issues. Ken Brand, I get it. You say Rhys, and I know why you say Rhys. You've had the years of Rhys, and you're a huge Rhys guy. And listen, I love Rhys Hoskins. I really do. But 46 and 118 is better than 30-85. Fight me.
Yeah, ultimately, production wins out, right? I do love Rhys Hoskins. I loved what he brought to the team. As I've discussed before, ultimately a necessary loss for the Phillies. Again, Phillies talk last episode. This is season 3, episode 2. You want to go to season 3, episode 1. Pete Alonso, though, wants to be out. And then the other two big pieces I had, Edwin Diaz, as we touched on before, out all of last year, returning. Arguably the best closer in baseball right now. I know Josh Hader is probably up there as well, but you could make the argument that Edwin Diaz is the best closer in baseball.
Yeah.
And then Kodai Senga, the big signing from Japan, 5 years, $75 million. A lot of money spent for somebody who hadn't even thrown a pitch in the MLB. Right, last year was fantastic. Age 30 season.
So good.
So he came over a little old. age 30 season, 29 games pitched, and on a terrible team went 12-7, sub 3 ERA at 2.98, a 122 whip, and 166 in the third innings pitched with 202 strikeouts. That ghost forkball that's talked about is disgusting.
Yeah,
Now
it really is.
into the other news and notes, Kodai Senga is going to be out for the start of the 2024 season. It's the most Mets thing that I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, out with the same injury that essentially derailed the careers of both Johan Santana and Corey Kluber, as well as Ben Sheets. In the shoulder, he's got a rough injury. I don't know of any other more Mets way possible to start the season off with another pitching injury to a guy they paid the money to and was going to be the ace of this staff. What are your thoughts on that, Bill?
Listen, I don't like the Mets, so I don't really care, but they've been so unlucky in that department. They signed specifically pitchers, right? They're signing pitchers, the Verlander, the Scherzers last year. They come out of camp, people think they're going to win 110 games. Right off the jump, both those guys are dealing with elbow injuries. They get dealt at the deadline. And it's unfortunate, right? And then, you come in, you've got this kid, so Kodai Senga. I can say kid, he's a little older than Ryan. He's younger than me. But it's specifically the injury, like you already pointed out, it derailed two already bigger name pitchers in the MLB years ago.
Yeah, Corey Kluber and Johan Santana were multi-time Cy Young winners apiece. And they got hurt.
So it's just like the most Met thing, like you said. Like the Mets are Metting even before the season begins at this point. Like they've completely waited. They've decided to not wait till September to Met. They've just started doing it right out of the gate. Yeah,
it happened last year with Diaz. It's happening again this year with Senga. Now, who knows how long Senga is actually out for? All I know, and everybody else knows right now, is that he's out for the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Which means he's going to have to re-stretch out and rehabilitate through this injury. A lot of money spent on a guy, like I said, who never threw a pitch in the MLB. That being said,
it looked like it was a great deal. The way he pitched last year, he pitched phenomenally. It looked like it was going to be a great deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and 12-7 on a terrible team, sub 3 ERA, fantastic numbers.
Yeah.
Mets over under win totals, 81.5. Bill, you and I know we're going to be on the same wavelength here.
I have the Nationals finishing last in this division. I think I said fourth before. I am incorrect there. However, I've got the Mets winning 73 games.
The Mets are an interesting case to me. As of right now, I have them fourth in the NL East.
That's where I've got them. That's behind, just one win above the Nationals.
I have them behind the Nationals, ahead of the Marlins.
No, I got the Marlins finishing third. So
if they deal Pete Alonso at the deadline, the Mets will finish last in the NL East.
100% agree. 1,000%.
There's no possible way there. And as far as this over/under goes, this is a pipe dream if the Mets win 81 games.
I don't know where that came from or why it's even that high.
This is the smash under for me. I have no idea why the line is set this high. They were a better team on paper last year for part of the year, and they hit 75. Senga being out, I'm not trusting a rotation led by Luis Severino, who has been hurt his own right the last few years. It's 81.5 is crazy. If I had to make one bet on the baseball season right now, it's the Mets do not win
the under
1.5 games. There's
1,000% with you. Yeah, I'm with you there. Maybe our sports guys can tell you that on Friday night.
Yeah, maybe our BSing sports bets guys on Friday nights. If you haven't seen their show, check them out YouTube. Like I said, live Friday night, 7:00 Eastern time. They do all the sports betting stuff regarding on BSing
anything at this point.
Yeah, and this is a smash under. The Mets are not a great team right now. Outside of Alonso and Lindor, that lineup does not threaten anybody. And who knows how long this injury is going to last? The Kodai Senga, this is just not a good team. 81.5 games is crazy. I'm taking the under.
I am absolutely with you there. Totally, no doubt.
So the Mets, if Senga comes back in time, and dudes start mashing. At best, finish third. I got them at fourth, and if they deal Alonso at the deadline, fifth. They're going to be.
I've got them fourth, and if they deal Alonso, they don't even win 71 games.
Yeah, I'm not confident that they'll finish third. That's a really what if output. So,
Yeah.
like I said, this division's pretty easy. I think it's 3 clear tiers. There's the first 3 teams we talked about, the Phillies, which we talked about last week, and then the team we'll talk about here shortly. That being said, real quick note, we both have the Phillies at second place. If you want to know their over-under win total, it's 89.5. If you want our predictions about that, go check out last week's episode on YouTube. It'll be on Spotify as well later tonight. That being said, got to roll into the Kings of the division. For those of you just tuning in, I am a Phillies fan through and through, but I do love Tom Glavine. Have been to an Atlanta Braves game. Had to get my man jersey.
Yeah. So the Braves last year went 104 games. You got guys like Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Alb.
I mean,
Austin Riley, Matt Olson,
Matt Olson. Team. I mean, they actually added Chris Sale in the offseason. I mean, Christ, if Chris Sale makes a 4-year comeback and turns into
Jared
old
Kelenic.
Chris Sale,
Kelenic, the lineup is deep.
But see, the Braves can afford to take chances on guys like Chris Sale, who haven't been the same in 3 or 4 years, or Jared Kelenic, who hasn't actually panned out yet as a prospect, because the rest of their team is so stinking good.
I know, man. I know.
So last year, so we've got one guy in the entire starting lineup last year who had an OPS plus under 100. If you do not understand what OPS plus is, please go back and listen to the beginning of the show. One guy, it was Orlando Arcia, it was 98. So he's pretty close anyway. You've got Sean Murphy, who's one of the best catchers in baseball, hit over 20 home runs, 251 batting average, OPS plus 125. You've got Matt Olson, who played every single game last year.
Every game.
54 home runs, 140 RBIs, and he walked over 100 times too. So we're talking an OPS of 993 and an OPS plus of 162. So Matt Olson, made Braves fans forget about Freddie Freeman really quick.
Real quick. Quick.
Not that Freddie Freeman played bad in LA, right? He might still be the best first baseman in the NL, but if I had to pick one guy to be nipping at his heels, it's Matt Olson. Then we've got Albies at second, who, great top of the lineup presence, but 33 home runs, 109 RBIs from your second baseman, 96 runs scored, 280, 849 OPS and a 124 OPS plus. You've got Austin Riley with 37 home runs. You've got Ronald Acuna with 41 home runs and only 73 stolen bases. Hit 337 and an OPS over 1,000. You've got Marcell Ozuna, who hit 40 home runs, 100 RBIs. You see a lot of high home runs and, proportionally speaking, lower RBI totals because these guys keep stealing runs from each other from the other guys hitting home runs. It's nuts. If I had to pick out a weak point on this team, it's their rotation. And that's because,
saying a lot considering Spencer Strider is part of their rotation.
So Spencer Strider went 20-5. He's going into his age 25 season. You've got Bryce Elder going into his age 25 season. He went 12-4. You've got Max Fried going into age 30 season. He only went 8-1 last year, but he was hurt. Jared Schuster, who is probably going to be like their 6th starter, age 25 season this year. He went 4-3 last year. Charlie Morton, the seasoned vet, going into his age 40 year. He went 14-12 last year. All these guys ERAs below 4.
The team is
Strider struck out 281 batters in 186 innings. This team is stacked. So why haven't they won a World Series? It's over 162 game stretch. All of that firepower, all of those statistics, all of that matters, right? It's going to play out in your odds more often than not. In a 162 game stretch, you have more margin for error. It's why they're so good. Why they haven't done well in the playoffs. And the playoffs in baseball are very different than any other sport. It is such a one game by one game basis. And I thoroughly believe that It is harder to win in the playoffs in baseball than any other sport. That being said, the Braves Strider didn't pitch bad last year against the Phillies. 3 runs
No.
allowed. Still lost. The offense was nowhere to be found. Zach Wheeler, lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah.
It just happened. Aaron Nola was average during most of the regular season. And unlike 2022, found a different gear in the playoffs.
Yeah. And listen, the Phillies needed it.
So the Braves are going to win the NL East.
100% agree.
I didn't even talk about Michael Harris. I didn't because
unless all these guys get injured, there's no shot that the Phillies overtake the Braves in the division.
This division is divided into 3 clear tiers. It's just a matter of, are the Braves finally going to push back to somebody?
It's the Braves, it's the Phillies, and then it's the other 3 teams.
That's pretty simple to me. I would agree with that. So can the Braves finally break through in the postseason? Who knows? They have the firepower to do it.
Yeah.
That being said, Atlanta Braves over-under wins total 101.5. And then I have a follow-up question after you give your prediction for that.
I've got them over. I said it, on a previous episode. I think they matched last year's win total at 104 and win the division by 10.
I've got them a little bit over by 102, 103. I think they run into scenarios that they have the last couple years where they clinch the division a little too early, kind of lull down the stretch in September.
I think they're going to be looking for the 1 seed, and the Dodgers are.
That was my follow-up question. Who wins more games, the Braves or the Dodgers?
The Dodgers. I'm sorry.
Ooh, that was very, very convincing. That was like a snap call in poker.
You look at that Dodgers lineup, and then I realize. Listen, I get it. Shohei Ohtani is not pitching this season, and when he does start pitching, that team becomes even better. By the way, but that lineup.
Which duo would you rather have? Acuna, Olsen, Betts, Freeman.
You didn't even say Ohtani. That's the funniest fucking part.
No, I didn't. But to be fair, I could pull out Riley and Ohtani.
Fine, that's fair. If you're asking me just those.
If you remove Ohtani's ability to pitch as a hitter, those trios are comparable.
I would agree. Bats for him. Because of what Olsen did last year, I would say Acuna, Olsen, 73 stolen bases, 56 home runs, 1-1, right? I would take them, even though the averages are better from Betts and Freeman. Man, I don't know.
That's tough.
I don't know. Yeah, no, because I want the guys on base. No, I think, you know what? I think I take Freeman. I think I take Freeman and Betts. I want them on base. May not have as much pop, may not have as much speed. I want them on base.
I'd probably take Acuna Olsen just because Acuna is the youngest player out of all of them. And I get him the longest.
I mean, I still think the Dodgers don't have a Phillies in their division. Right? Someone who's a thorn in their side. Yeah, they got the D-backs. Yeah, they got the Giants.
I mean, but outside of, COVID World Series, they haven't done anything either.
I understand that. I do. But the Dodgers don't have that thorn in their side in the division. Every single game the Braves and Phillies play this year is going to be so heated. It's going to mean so much because of what's happened in the last 2 years in the playoffs. The Dodgers don't have that. And because the Dodgers don't have that, I think the Dodgers win more games. Not by much. I've got the Dodgers winning 105. It's that close. It's that close. But I've got the Dodgers.
I've got the Braves. I think we'll get into it. I've got the Braves right now because without doing much research, again, we'll get into the NL West in a couple of weeks. Off the top of my head, I feel like the NL West is a better division than the NL East is. That's why I have the Braves, but again, it's a margin so close.
Yeah, I got it one game. I've got one game. So I hear you. I'm with you. I do think that division is better. I just think the Dodgers are so far and above the rest of the teams in their division. Listen, I said the Braves are going to win the division by 10 games over the Phillies. However, I don't think it'll be against the Phillies that they win the division by 10 games, right? It's going to be by them beating the other teams in the league. For whatever reason, the Phillies have the Braves number.
Phillies went 8-11 against the Braves last year in the regular season, and then proceeded to walk them out of the playoffs for the second year in a row.
And that's what I'm talking about.
I would.
I'll take that. I'll take that trade every year.
I would gladly go 8-11 against the Braves in the regular season to walk them out of the postseason every year for as long as I live.
Yeah, 100%. Zero argument there. But I just think that because of the way they've walked them out of the playoffs the last 2 years in a row, there's that thorn in the Braves side, right? And they're the Phillies are the thorn.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. It's going to be close, and we'll do a deep dive in the NL West in a couple weeks.
Keep in mind, the Braves played the Phillies a lot early in the year when the Phillies were bad.
When they didn't have Bryce Harper.
I'm aware of what the catalyst was. We had that conversation last week, but you're saying, oh, they were 8-11 against the Braves last year or the Phillies last year. But when did they play the Phillies? Did they play the Phillies when they only lost 12 games for 2 months? Or did they play the Phillies when they only won 12 games for 2 months? Like, it's a good argument.
Phillies will be interesting this year. NL East will be a little bit interesting this year, at least at the bottom third anyway. Anything else to add before we sign out here, Bill?
No, as always, go Phils.
Go Phils, baby. I know I'm wearing the Braves jersey, but if you missed why, go watch the beginning of the show.
Thank you for joining us here on BSing. Oh, no, you got to go to the bullpen. You got to do it. It's baseball season, baby.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Bottom of the ninth. We've got Freeman. We've got Soto. I need the lefty.
Thank you for joining us here on BSing Sports, part of the BSing Network, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Have a good night.